using emotions to using emotions to detect symptoms is great. Using emotions to solve or make decisions is terrible. So I have seen that one good framework of decision making is talking to champions of that field of decision making. Somebody who has more choices usually has ability to make better decisions than people who have lesser choices. Let me explain what I mean by that. A person who's likely to be able to get anybody to marry them, and they have the ability to do that, are likely to be better at taking decisions on how to marry somebody right. And it sounds weird, but choices just make them better, right? Or an investor that can invest in any company is likely to become better on how to pick companies, right? So I think the expertise of decision making is usually in people who have more choices than others. In fact, according to me, the simplest definition of success is also about having more choices than other people. I believe that a lot of people are taking decisions through emotion, which is a hit or miss thing, but problems to solve or to feel are through emotions, right? So for example, a lot of times founders are like parents who sometimes just know intuitively something is wrong with their kid or their startup or their company, but emotions are not good enough to solve the problem, but they are very good at knowing intuitively something is off. And you, like, even doctors will struggle when a mother feels something about the kid, and like they're like, we can't find something, and then something is off, and they just feel it. And it's a great place to find something to be fixed, not a great tool to use how to fix, because emotions will make you do stupid decisions on how to solve that problem, and you'll overcorrect or over destruct in trying to solve that problem if you use emotions to do that. So I think using emotions to detect symptoms is great. Using emotions to solve or make decisions is terrible. Everybody has different framework. I know about the Bezos framework of regret minimization framework, and you can talk about many of these things. I think a lot of times having just a long-term mindset around decisions, even if it's short-term decisions, is useful. So I've seen that some people are naturally good at long-term decisions than many people who are very good at short-term decisions, right? So I think using a lot of those people as APIs in your life for long-term decisions is a good framework. And we, all of us, know some people who are very good at long-term decisions, and they think 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, 100 years on everything, right? For example, I've always told people that all bad behavior is rooted in short-term thinking. Every bad behavior in human beings comes from being short-term about everything, right? And I think if you play a long enough game, it doesn't seem like a bad thing. And I think therefore it's not natural for humans to think 30 years out. And therefore people do stupid things with their reputation or their trust with people or all of that, because they don't think it matters 10 years later. But if you do grow your reputation slowly, it gives you huge powers later on, because it compounds quickly. In fact, I remember this beautiful quote one of our investors told me, that, no, Kunal, reputation is a bank account where you can only deposit $1 a day, but every time the withdrawal is almost nearly complete. So if you make a mistake on your reputation, the withdrawal will be complete, but in terms of deposit, you can only almost deposit $1 a day. You can't hack reputation. In fact, everybody who tries to hack a reputation is penalized badly by the society, and they get corrected quickly. But slow reputation usually gives you more currency to outlast. I do believe that some people are just naturally good at judgment, and the reason they are very good at that, because they love to be right a lot. And I think I'm sure you had talked about this concept of decision journals and all of that, but the thing is that intuitively, people who are very good at decision making are constantly journaling, without even sometimes not writing, but constantly evaluating everything that they did in the past objectively, without feeling emotional about it, and constantly reflecting on it and improving their algorithm, right? And I think in terms of decision making, there is this thing that you say, what would Steve do, and what would Bezos do, what would this do? Actually sounds stupid, but it's not. Or what would Jesus do, right? These are good frameworks to say that let me try to think like them and see if they would do it or not. And I think sometimes just creating this mimicry of sorts would be very powerful. That would this person do this?
To the point about asking yourself, like, what would Steve do or what would Elon do? One of the reasons I find this so helpful is that the source of all of our biases are blind spots. We can only see through our frame of reference, but the world exists outside of our frame of reference. And when you ask yourself, like, what would Warren do, or what would Steve do, or what would Kunal do? What you're really doing is you're getting out of your own head and you're seeing the world through a different lens. And that in and of itself starts to reveal blind spots. And the source of all bad decisions is blind spots, because if you knew what was going to happen, you would obviously never make a poor choice. Everything makes sense based on how you see the world. And so what you're really doing is you're shifting your frame of reference, which is the only thing that I've ever seen helpful at avoiding cognitive biases in the future. Because cognitive biases are so good at explaining why we made a mistake, but retrospectively in the past, here's why you screwed up. And it's like, well, that's great. How do I use this information to make better decisions in the future? And it's like, actually, that's really tricky. The smarter you are, the more likely you're not going to be able to do that. But what I have seen being super useful at avoiding them is to think less of them as cognitive biases and think about frames of reference. And do I have the right frame of reference to see this problem? And how can I shift my frame of reference to see it through a different lens, through somebody else's eyes? And that comes down to curiosity too, right? And truth seeking, because I want to see the world through your eyes. I want to see what it looks like, see what you think. I don't have to agree with it. And I think that's where people instantly like tune out.
It's funny you're saying this. All the people who are seemingly very good at decisions, they tend to have multiple personalities in thinking about situations. They can almost think like 5 different people at the same time.
Totally.
And they can become different people and see blind spots of that. For example,
and explain the problem exactly through the lens of that person.
Or instinctively just able to reject things. For example, let's say we are trying to hire a senior person in our startup, and let's say we have read autobiography of 5 successful people in life, and we can really live through that thing. Or let's say movie characters that we have seen, and we have built that reference in our head on what they would do, and say, would this person hire this guy? And it's weird. We'll be able to instinctively feel from there and say, no, there is no way this guy would touch this guy. Why? Because he's not smart enough to meet that level, or he's not creative enough, and does not have the slope like the way this guy did it. And we always can come up with that, and therefore being able to getting multiple perspectives. So 2 things I have seen, right? People who are saying well-read, well-traveled is nothing but acquiring more lenses in life to see things. The word unusual starts dying as you travel more, as you read more. You are less shocked, you are less surprised, because nothing seems unusual. You've seen it all.